Good morning, all. Just to finish off the production budgets, I mentioned in the last few videos that there was a slight difference to the Part D, or at least there was a variety of ways that you could be asked to do Part D. So one of the ways was to prepare a trading account, and in order to prepare the trading account you needed to know what the unit cost of closing stock of each of the products was. And normally they'd ask you, or in another type of question they'd ask you, prepare the trading account, and then in brackets they'd give you the unit cost of closing stock of each of the products. In this question, this is the 2011 question, by the way, 2011 question 9. It's asking you, instead of preparing a trading account, it's saying calculate the unit cost of budgeted closing stock of both products, which is the information that is usually contained in the brackets when they ask you to do the trading account. So there's that. And then if we go to later years, like if you go to, I think maybe 2019 and 2017, there were 2 years, I think, where it came up in the production question where they asked you to calculate or to prepare a trading account, and they didn't give you the information in the brackets, which meant that you also had to calculate the unit cost of the closing stock of each of the products. Okay, so for today then we're going to look at the calculating the unit cost of the closing stock of both products. So if we have a look at the information you've been given beforehand, it gives, for instance, in this question, you're doing budgeting for the year 2012, and it says the finished goods that you had on the 1st of the 1st, which is the 1st of January, the start of 2012, are this many units of this light product and this many units of this extra light product. But it says at €200 each and at $220 each. That's because that figure is how much it costs to make 1 unit of that light last year, because you have them in your warehouse at the start of this year. It means they were left over from last year, it means they were manufactured last year, and that's how much it cost to make one of those last year, and the 220 is how much it cost to make one of the extra light last year. But then when you're looking for the unit cost of a budgeted closing stock for both of the products at the end of 2012, well, how much it costs to make those products, or what we record as the cost of them at the end of 2012, is how much they cost, or they cost us to make them during 2012, not prior to 2012, but during 2012. And as like costs generally go up all of the time, the cost of manufacturing them during 2012 is likely to be more than what it was, this 200 and this 220, to manufacture them last year. Okay, so that's why we're using different figures to this 200 and this 220. Okay, so in order to do it, this is what it looks like anyway. We start with, we're looking for the unit cost of a light and an extra light. So we have 2 columns here, light, extra light. Okay, and a unit cost is just the cost to manufacture 1 unit. Okay, and if you're manufacturing these items, whatever they are, there are a lot of different things that you have to pay in order to manufacture a unit of them. And the first and most obvious thing is you have to buy some material to make one of these and some material to make one of those. And we know that each of these is made from 2 different types of material, material A and material B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say material A here and material B. Okay, so the amount of, or the cost of the material A that goes into one of these this year is, well, it says that a light takes 8 kilograms of material A. Well, that's just the amount though, isn't it? We need to know the price of it. So the price per kilogram during, whereas the expected prices of raw materials during 2012 for material A is €4 per kg. So it takes 8 kgs at €4 per kg. So in total, 8 fours are 32. It's going to cost you €32 to manufacture one of these lights. Same goes for the extra. We know again, when we're talking about material A, we know it's €4 per kg, so we can fill in that bit. But how many kgs of material A does it take to manufacture an extra light? 6 kgs. So 6 fours, €24. If you like, you can have like a euro sign above here, to manufacture 1 unit of extra light. Material B then, again, it's the same idea, 9 kgs to make 1 unit of a light, and 7 kgs to make 1 unit of an extra light, and each kg of material B costs €5.50. So €5.50. €5.50. So what's 95 is 45, 49.50. 50, and over here, what are we talking about? 35 and 38.50, I'd say. Okay. Sorry, 38.50. Okay, so the next item then is, that's how much material. So you'd put material into these in order to create 1 unit of each of them. But also you'd have to pay somebody to make 1 unit of them. So there's a labor cost associated with creating 1 unit. So we look at the labor cost. And again, the amount of labor is, it takes 8 hours to make 1 light. But that doesn't tell you the cost. How much do we pay for each hour of labor? We pay €12 per hour, so 8 12s. And for a unit of extra light, well, it takes 9 hours to make an extra light, and it's the same labor rate. It's €12 per hour you're paying. So what did I say? 9 by 12. So 9 12s are 108. Might as well make these all pounds and pence, or cents and euros. And 8 12s are 96, isn't it? So that's the labor cost to make just 1 unit. Okay. The next thing is, what other costs go into this? Well, we've seen from the when we were doing the production cost or manufacturing budget and other questions, that there are 2 other costs that go into it. There's the variable cost per unit, or variable cost generally, and the fixed costs. So we're going to have a variable cost and fixed cost. Okay, so again, the variable cost is straightforward, because it says your production overheads are expected to be, your variable costs, things like electricity and that type of thing, is €4.50 for every hour of skilled labor that's spent on a product, manufacturing a product. So again, if we look at this, it's 8 hours to manufacture a light. Your variable costs are €4.50 per hour. So it's just going to be 8 by 450. And equally, for the extra light, it's just going to be 9, because it takes 9 hours to manufacture one of those, by 450. So what's that? 32, 36. And what's this? 36 and €40.50, isn't it? I believe. Okay, now the fixed cost. This is the only tricky bit about this, I suppose. The fixed cost is given in all one figure, 210,500. Now that's like rent and rates and things like that you just pay one amount, and it doesn't matter how much you manufacture. But those costs, you want to allocate that cost to this light and extra light to try and work out, how much each individual product cost you. Now, it would be very simple if you had only one product. For instance, if you only had the light and you weren't manufacturing the extra light, and you were manufacturing, we'll say, 10,000 of these lights in a year, well, you could just take your 210,500 and divide by 10,000, and then you'd have the amount of fixed cost per unit of light that you manufactured. But the issue is, you have 2 of these. Now, you might say that, well, why don't you just say 10,000 lights, and if there was 5,000 extra lights, add them together, 15,000, and divide it into this, and you'd get the amount per 1 unit. But I don't think that's a fair way of designating those costs, because, like, if you had a factory that was making a huge amount of lights and only a small amount of extra lights, then all of these lights, since you're making a huge amount of them, they should get way more of this fixed cost allocated to them than the extra lights would. So it's really not a fair way of divvying it up. Now, there is no, I suppose, perfect or one way that is the best way, I suppose, to divide up this fixed cost amongst the lights and the extra lights. But there are several good ways, and the one in particular that we use for the Leaving Cert is we divide this money up amongst light and extra light based on the number of hours spent manufacturing lights in the factory and manufacturing extra lights in the factory. So what we need to do in order to divide it up in that way is, first of all, we need to find out how many hours were spent manufacturing lights and how many hours were spent manufacturing extra lights during the year. Now, it's 8 hours for one and 9 hours for one of these, but that doesn't give us the total amount. So what we need to do is we need to go back and go to our solution and go back to our production budget that we've already produced, and we need to see how many of these lights we made during the year and multiply them by 8 to get the total amount of hours we spent working on lights during the year, and find out how many extra lights that we manufactured during the year, multiplying them by 9, and that gives us the total amount of hours spent manufacturing extra lights during the year. Then when we have the total amount of hours spent manufacturing each of these, we add them together to get the total amount of hours of work that was done in the factory during the year. We divide that into this 210,500 to get a fixed cost per hour of work, if you like. And then we can say, well, if it takes 8 hours to make a light, we multiply by 8 this fixed cost per hour of work. And if it takes 9 hours to make an extra light, we multiply by 9 the fixed cost per hour of work. So we'll just see how that's done in a second. First of all, I just want to show I have the solution here in front of me, and I just have it on the computer, and it shows from the production budget that we were going to produce 11,935 of these lights during the year and 3,450 of these extra lights. I just wanted to show you where those figures came from first of all. So 11,935 lights and 3,450 extra lights are going to be manufactured. Okay, so what we do then is we say in an extra working down here, we want to divide up this 210,500 of fixed costs. We want to divide it by the total amount of hours that was worked in the factory during the year. So the total amount of hours worked in the factory was, well, there were 11,000, like I said already, 935 lights manufactured. And each one of those, somebody spent 8 hours working on them. Okay. And there were 3,450 extra lights manufactured during the year, and for each one of those somebody spent 9 hours working on them. So if I multiply them out and add them together, I get the total amount of hours of work that was done in the factory during the year. And if I divide that into this fixed cost, the rent and the rates and all of that type of thing, I end up with it's going to be, I think, approximately, let me just check the solution, 166 is correct, per hour of work. This divided by the total amount of hours of work gives me the fixed cost per hour of work. Okay, so if I take this 166 and I want to know what's the fixed cost for making one extra light, well, how many hours of work were done? 9 hours of work to make one extra light. I multiply it by this 166. How many hours of work were spent making one light? 8 hours. I multiply by 166, the fixed cost per hour of work. If I multiply that out, I get 1328 here, and I get what, 1494 here. Okay, and if I add the two of these together, then this is going to be 226.78, and this is going to be 225.94. And that's what I was asked for in the question. It says the unit cost of budgeted closing stock of both products. So we're saying the cost of making a light in total during the year was 226.78. The cost of manufacturing one extra light during the year was 225.94. And then we're selling them then at 280 and 320. So we are making a profit based on what it's costing us to make them.